Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. We are live. I'm streaming live from Auckland. We're currently in a level 4 lockdown. We have just gone into quite an extreme lockdown for New Zealand. There are people out and about. I look out my window, people are running. We've got chainsaw going. We've got all sorts of stuff. So if there's any noise in the background, it's out of my control. It's exciting to be here with you today. So wherever you are tuning in from, feel free to jump in. This is a live session, so we've got some people jumping in. I've got Sue. Hi. Yep, you're the first one on. So she says she's the first there. John Baptiste. Hello. We've got Lee. Hi, Lee. Lee says hi to both Kirsty and Jacob. We've got Nico saying hi. If you are here, feel free to jump on. Let us know where you're calling in from. Calling in. You're not calling, where you're watching in from. We are going to have an amazing conversation today. I'm excited. We've got all sorts of conversation to come out. My guest today is Jacob Cooper, and we've got an episode coming up with Jacob Cooper on the podcast very, very soon. It will be released in just a couple of weeks, but we had this opportunity to come in and do a live session, and I really wanted to do that. So we are here today. My guest is Jacob Cooper. Now, Jacob says, well, he doesn't actually say this, but I'm sure he says this, that breathing is a gift that we often take for granted until it's taken away from us. It is literally a life and death process. And Jacob understands this all too well after suffocating from whooping cough, a respiratory tract infection that is fatal for infants. At the age of 3, Jacob's body shut down from oxygen deprivation, and he experienced an out-of-body experience that shaped his perception on life and death. Jacob is now a clinical social worker. He's a certified hypnotherapist, a certified Reiki master, and specializes in past life regression. And he's also the author of Life After Breath, which is a wonderful book that talks about how a brush with fatality gave him a glimpse of immortality. So Jacob, welcome to our live session today. It is great to have you here. I know you've got your book. Give your book a little wave to everybody.
Yes.
We want to see this beautiful book.
Here is
Look
my
at
book,
that.
Life After Breath. It's got angels and a ladder on it, and it is available on Amazon International, Amazon US, and it's been endorsed by 3 New York Times bestselling authors, including Dr. Raymond Moody, who's on the cover, who coined the term near-death experience in the mid-70s. So,
yeah, that's a real achievement. That is just wonderful. I'm actually just looking for a little banner. Here we go. Let's show that. So I've got too many things going on at once. Gosh, I'm really not on form today, am I? That is okay. We've got Sue's making marmalade. Okay, now I've got to try and get these off. It always happens when you go live, but bear with me, people. It's been a little while since we've done one of these live sessions. I jumped on. We've had some microphone issues. I'm just, in general, got a whole lot of things going on with my laptop. Okay, we've got Everly from Tennessee. We've got Nico in Belgium. Phil from Sacramento. We have got people tuning in from all over the place. So thank you for taking the time to come and join us today. I know today's going to be amazing. Jacob, I'm going to hand over to you. You were 3 years old when you had this near-death experience. Tell us what happened.
Yes. I was 3 years old. As discussed in the intro, I had whooping cough, otherwise known as pertussis. I went to a park with family, friends, and I climbed up to a ladder on a slide, and on the last rung up on the slide, I just suffocated. I wasn't able to breathe. Everything within my physiological body shut down. I looked outside of my body as if you're trying to start a car and the car's not working. You're looking at the engine, and just every part of my body shut down to deprivation of oxygen. And the last part of the part of my body that I felt was when I was in my brain, and that snapped in half due to the deprivation of oxygen. And once my brain cracked in half, that's when spirit and God was in my immediate awareness, and I went into a familiar tunnel, into a familiar realm, where I encountered awareness of, I guess you could say, the all that ever is and ever was, or God, and had an awareness of Christ consciousness, I was able to encounter my own spirit guides, countless angels that were there with me, soul family members, and there was a lot more awareness that you would have in your life as an adult, bear in mind a 3-year-old, but this was an awareness that wasn't produced by my own brain or my own chronological age. It was an awareness beyond that. And I had options of staying or going within my experience, which is is a lot more detailed in my book. But I was able to really become aware of purpose within this life and service. And really to find myself was to serve others and to make this world a better world in so many ways. And as beautiful as the other side was and the realm was, I just found that bringing heaven down to earth was a much greater and more beautiful window that I couldn't pass up on. I decided to live out my life, and that's why I'm here today.
Wow, there is so much in that. Thank you, Jacob. That's amazing. I want to ask I want to ask a lot of questions right now, but I want to backtrack. The thing that you said to me that really stood out to me was that your brain broke in half.
Mm.
What do you mean? Like physically?
Well,
What happens
it's
there?
as if, I was aware of my body and how it felt, and I was really able to look at my brain and, disembodied. And I was able to feel my brain, and I literally just felt my brain just snap in half, as if you take a plug in a wall that you're tuned into. Consciousness tuned into the brain, tuned into the body, and then consciousness ripped out of the body, ripped out of the brain. And so really that told me that the brain is just merely a filter of consciousness, but there's a higher energy that we're forever connected to. So it's not flowing from the brain, but rather through the brain. And so that part of me that was the spiritual being in this human body, capable of thought energy within my brain, all that was no longer serving me. And I was able to really become a lot more fuller and more aware of who I truly was as an infinite spiritual being within this finite meat suit or body, as we call it.
Mm. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? And you said that it felt familiar, that you went through a familiar tunnel, you met with familiar beings.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The place, I would say it was an adjustment. There was an incubation period, because we're vibrating at a lower rate. And so for us to really all of a sudden just have that quick change and to enter another dimension, there was an adjustment. But where I was nothing foreign. It was quite the opposite. It was home. It was the closest core of my being and its area and region of dwelling. It's where I was always forever connected to, in a place that I might have lost sight of, as I think we all do. But it was a grand reunification of who we are and where we're forever connected to and where we're headed when this body serves its purpose.
Wow, it's something to look forward to, isn't it? It sounds just amazing. I do apologize. I've got a little thing in my throat. I'm just coughing a little bit, having some water. So I apologize if I jump on and off a mute. You might see me in the background. Aside from that, I want to continue on your story. So it seemed familiar.
Mm.
We have been talking quite a bit on the show, particularly in the VIP group of the show recently. We had Bud McGargery come on recently. And he talked about how the soul is like an octopus, how you've got the head of the octopus and you might have all the tentacles, and that actually we could be in different places at different times, that our entire soul might not incarnate all at once. So when you're talking about coming back into this place of familiarity, was there any kind of feeling like you were reconnecting with maybe parts of your soul that weren't in your physical body when you were that 3-year-old? Does that even make sense?
It was really becoming a lot more aware of myself beyond the personality that I saw myself as, 3-year-old Jake. It was breaking that. And I really think to find yourself, you have to be willing to lose yourself. And who you are is unlimited virtually. But we pick different cultures, different personalities, and we get caught up in that. And that, for a lot of people, is known as the ego, or edging God out, or edging a part of you out. And I think a lot of that is learning to differentiate, understand that who we are and how we see
In
ourselves
here.
is temporary, but beyond that is a lot more dimensions and layers to our infinite self.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And we just froze a little bit there, so I hope that everybody got the full version of that. What about thinking about how we choose different cultures, we incarnate differently, different times, different experiences? After going through your experience, how much do you think that we get the choice to choose those experiences? Do you think we can choose that we'll come back and we will live in whichever country it is to the family that we're with?
Well, this is something that I had within my near death experience, as well as awareness of the charting phase of my life that I would remember as a child very often. I certainly say that we could have input, we could have an urge, we could advocate, but it has to be approved by our guides and the higher council of spirit and our team. And so, you take a near death experience for an example, there's two forms of it. There's a near death experiencer like myself who had autonomy and what to do. Then there are those experiencers who said that it's not your time. And so when it's red, I think, you get the green light. When it's not, you might have a yellow or a red. At the end of the day, at times your awareness, your highest version of what you want to do really is a green. And at times the intelligence of spirit will, kind of push you in a different direction that might be something that not what you want, but rather, what's essential for the next degree of expression and evolution and chapter in your endless journey.
That makes sense. I want to come back to charting, but I want to ask you before then, did you feel like you got a choice to come back?
Absolutely, yes. That was given to me. The autonomy was certainly there. It was, one of the most difficult decisions that I made. I mean, to turn down the other side and the endless euphoric of peace. And the way I could describe it is within the human form, we're used to glimpses of peace, but we don't, on a full total, have engagement with it on a basis that feels like eternal. We're used to maybe having it, and then in our mind goes to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or that, job that we need to do, or what's next. There's no, worry about what's next, the next play. It's just you're in the presence of eternity where there's no finite time. There's nothing that you need to do. All that you ever have is already there. It's perfect just as is. And that's foreign to so many of us. But I was given that opportunity, and part of why I decided to stay was the Dharma within this carnation, which is different than karma. I view Dharma as our duty and what we will be doing in our lifetime, in a way. And both are, I think, Hindu principles, but life's work and the beauty of it and the ripple effect, was much greater than heaven on earth, because when you're bringing these principles to that, you don't have to wait till you die to get to there. You're integrating it in your everyday life, and the veil is gossamer, even thinner, from just bringing who you truly are, what you know, into reality as we know it.
Yeah. Gosh, it's amazing how much connection you had as a 3-year-old to understand all of this. But it makes sense to me because we're not defined by the wisdom that we learn on this earth. Like as a 3-year-old, maybe we haven't had so many experiences. We haven't picked up a lot of the wisdom that we learn throughout a lifetime. But that spiritual wisdom and that higher connection that actually just transcends all of that understanding that we need can be so relevant at that time. So yeah, amazing that all of this was going through your mind as a 3-year-old having this out-of-body near-death experience. Did you feel, you said that you got the choice, it was about your Dharma, which, is it fair to say that that's connected to your life purpose, the reason that you're here, the role that you have on this earth?
Well, I think a lot of my Dharma was very much related to my last incarnation, in which I took my own life, and I committed
Oh,
suicide,
okay.
which has been validated by several evidential psychics and mediums, who've either heard me speak, or before I went into this work, they were able to say it without, this is before I even became public, that it was,
Yeah.
the information that I knew was validated without me saying a word. But
Mm.
I would say, and why I say that is, in my last incarnation, my kind of like my back is against the wall, and I don't think anyone who commits suicide is wanting to die. I think it's a catharsis, because for them it's just too much of what they're holding on to, and they
Yeah.
don't see any bit of change or hope past the darkness that they're facing. They see no out. And so having this near death experience for myself was a reminder that no matter what you're going through, there's an infinite degree of support, belief, and possibility when you don't even see it. And
Mm.
this isn't something that we're here to go through pain, but rather a reminder that the infinite consciousness inside of us and around us is stronger than any temporary, circumstance. And A Course in Miracles states that, uh, you know, something that's real can never be threatened, and who you are, and nothing unreal exists, right? So who you are is true and real, and the love that you are is true and real, and all that is what lasts, and everything else fades, like an ocean just having its wave and coming back to the infinite
Mm.
consciousness of its nature. So.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I love what you're saying. Did you ever suspect that I'm putting the pieces together as I talk. Did you ever suspect that you had this previous lifetime where you had committed suicide? Like earlier on in life, did you suspect that? I assume you found this out through having a regression. You said you've
Mhm.
talked to evidential mediums.
No, actually, to speak about this in my book, I've had a lot of moments that just kind of came out of nowhere, and I would just see the same scene over and over again. And what I saw was able to be validated, through people,
Wow.
and how it kind of happened in the role that I had. And so as a kid, you're not walking around thinking, having a terminology for it. It was just more of a nuisance. But it just felt like a recurring daydream that I would constantly have, and it
Mm,
just almost kind of felt annoying, and it was very. At the time, I didn't have a word for it, but it was very, in a way, scary and traumatic and a nuisance. And I think so many people, have those experiences, but they don't label it. They just kind of repress it. But
mm,
sometimes, time, takes over from what we just see in front of us, where we're infinitely connected beyond this immediate time as we know it in this infinite reality. And sometimes other songs on the CD come into play that were from the quote unquote past. And sometimes we confuse, those lifetimes and this lifetimes. And we
mm,
continue to repeat the same patterns and the same degree of attractions of not what we want, but who we are and what we're thinking, what we're broadcasting, and how that
mm,
impacts the life that we live.
mm. So interesting, isn't it? I've heard a lot of stories of people who perhaps they feel really connected to a certain part of the world, and then they go there and they know the streets. It's like they've been there before. I've seen videos on YouTube as well, similar things where people are experiencing stuff that they physically haven't experienced in this lifetime. And I think a lot of past life stuff does come into that. We'll just have a knowing and an understanding that they've either done this before, or that there's a familiarity around their environment, or feeling that call to a certain part of the world. It's certainly something which is very, very interesting to me. I
Yeah.
think potentially our lifetimes, we do bring in memories. I do think we bring in ancestral memories. And it's very, very hard. You can't define this. You can't actually measure this in a way. You can't say it definitely happens or it definitely doesn't happen. And yeah, I think there's unlimited possibilities out there of all these things that could be taking place in our lifetime at this moment, but bringing in previous lifetimes, other things that have been going on as well. I want to lead that into the question of charting. You said something about how you chart your life, how that was a spiritual experience before you came here.
Mm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? It's something you remember? it's something you remembered from your near-death experience, or how did
Within the
that work?
NDE, but also after, I would just remember this kind of takeoff period, almost kind of like leaving this mountaintop, and I just have this recurring dream in the waking state, or what we view as awakened state in the dream state. But really, I think the dream state is the awakened state, and the wake. You know what I'm saying? It's vice versa, because I think you have more clarity in the dream state than you do in the quote unquote awakened state. But I would
Yeah.
just have a lot of different memories within my guides and my soul team, and just kind of, having this group conversation or conference, and just getting everything kind of specific. And so I think the major overarching themes in your life are undoubtedly there. Otherwise you can't. Sometimes we just say, "Geez, who did this?" and we question it. But when we see it through, it's perfect just as it is. Not
Mm.
always at face value or the eye test, but when we look back on it, there's a greater purpose, there's a greater awareness that we might not have been privy to going through it. And, sometimes I think the meaning of all this is to find the meaning in all of it, and, the meaning of life question, is not
Yeah.
to, it is really just to give life meaning and to find the meaning of life.
Wow. Yeah. I like that. There's an element of I'm trying to get my head around that, and I know that we can never get our head around that. But it's an interesting part because it's part of the discussion we've been having as well in our last VIP call. We were talking about what is the meaning of life? Is it to progress? Is it to achieve anything? Is it just to be? Is it to experience? Is it to fulfill that purpose? So when you were talking about charting, how much do you think gets charted? Do you think that we come here with certain elements of our life that are predestined, pre-charted, I suppose, and then we have freedom around the rest? Or how do you think that works?
I think major events, are tough to get around. I think they might not be exactly the time, space, whatever, but I think the major events in life, I mean, such as a major illness, or, you know, or something like I had, a transformative near death experience, could certainly, be that way. But, I think if everything were to be predetermined, what would be the point of being here? If everything's already
Mm,
scripted in a way. And so I think
mm,
we have, the ability, to fulfill our destiny, but to be more than destiny, to evolve even past what our plans were. And we have
mm,
unlimited capacity to surpass what even our highest vision of what we were capable of, because we are infinite in our part of ourselves, and there's nothing that could limit infinite, you know. But I
yeah.
think there's a baseline, kind of thing within that. But we have the ability to transcend that to even new plateaus. But someone, with such a clear calling in life, or something like that, or Mozart playing at such a young age, or any major influencer, certainly they could sit on their couch and not have it happen. But as long as they're, just basically on something past, something quantum is bound to happen with certain, you know, um, I call them soul shaking carnations, that are here to just really awaken the masses, to not, put them on a pedestal, but to remind us that we're made of the same stuff as those people that we see, in the stars here.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm exploring a new theory that I've got at the moment, and if anyone's listening, please do not judge anything on this, do not base anything on this, because like I say, it's a new theory that I'm exploring. But I'm going to ask you this, Jacob. What do you think about the idea that potentially over many, many lifetimes, we all have to experience everything one time? So in one lifetime, we might experience suicide. In one lifetime, we might experience loss. We might experience when we die as a child, when we die as an older person. We might experience when we have one of those moments where we feel like there's a very significant lifetime that changes a lot for a lot of people. We might experience that lifetime where we feel like, actually, I don't really contribute, and feeling quite little in that lifetime. What do you think about that?
I think, in a way, we all experience all of it because the soul is infinitely connected. We're not separate from one another as we see it. We all have experienced it all. But sometimes, we choose, different patterns or different pathways within different lifetimes on the wheel, for different reasons. But I view that as significant for this, for ourselves, in a way, because it makes a more well-rounded, more evolved experience. I could talk about going swimming until I'm blue in the face, but until I go swimming, I don't really know exactly what that's like. And so I think we have
Yeah.
a knowing within us, but I think it's about the application of that and going through that, because I think that this earth is not just a school, for ourselves, but it's a school to learn how to be a guide. And when you're learning how to be a guide, you're more well versed in understanding a lot more different experiences and cultures, so that you can relate, closely to whoever it is you decide to elect to, or just, decide. It's, you're going through different degrees of consciousness and different experiences, to have a grander
Mm.
expression of who you are through each rung on those experiences.
Mm. There's so much in it, isn't there? There's so many possibilities and so many ideas. So that's why I say I'm just exploring this idea, because
Yeah.
it's something that really struck me recently of like, what if every lifetime we have one thing that we want to, or at least one thing that we experience, and that actually everybody over multiple lifetimes experiences everything, which is why we look around and it seems like some people have it harder than others, or people have very, very different lives
Mm.
yet are trying to live in the same way. So, yeah, really interesting. Do you have any thoughts around, because I know you do past life regression therapy, that you help people to regress. Do you have any thoughts around how many lifetimes we might all live?
I'm not 100% sure. I think each one is different.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot more than what we would probably imagine. I mean, for instance, within my near-death experience, I saw several lifetimes. And once you think you have a monopolization of reality, a new set of, events come into play, which makes things exciting. And, there's certain things that I know as real that aren't changing, but other things, I know are just continually evolving in awareness. And
Mm,
when you say infinite consciousness, there's no limitation of our ability to really wrap ourselves around that, in a way. So
totally.
infinite possibilities of that. But I think it's more about the substance within those lives and how we were able to elevate ourselves in those lifetimes and to have those lives. Sometimes we label things as better or worse, but everything has its purpose. I mean, a lot of times people
Yeah.
come to regressions wanting to be Cleopatra, and I ask them, well, which one was it? There's 6 or 7, and many times they just live kind of like a layman's kind of lifetime where they, are farmers, or they're working in, I don't know, like a fish farm somewhere, and it's just something kind of mundane. It's not so esoteric, and grand.
Yeah.
But I think that's a part of it, is to find the sacred and even the mundane, and to be at different parts, of the karmic wheel, where, the rich of today was a poor of tomorrow, or something like that. And it's all a part of having a knowing and an ability to understand this experience and to relate to our souls is just really one. It's nothing
Mm.
separate or othered than that awareness.
Exactly, exactly. And I suppose that doesn't really change throughout lifetimes. Like our environments change, our social situations change, the people around us, but that underlying being and underlying spiritual connection is pretty much the same throughout the lifetimes, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm working on this in my next book coming up, which
Oh,
is
great.
called The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. It's, I call it the sister of life after breath, or the sibling of life after breath. But The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder is the book I'm working on, is very much a lessons about, the afterlife, and how we don't have to go in a spaceship to get to heaven, or how we don't have to hold our breath to get to heaven, how that eternal breath is within all of us. But one part of it, my near-death experience happening on a ladder in a playground, really differentiates the ladder that we were brought into this world with, the ladder of success, the ladder where for us to be something, we had to go in a different rung of the ladder. And so Carl Jung would refer to that as the morning of life, I believe, right? Where we're in the ego and we're constantly chasing and we're always going after that next thing. And then the afternoon of life, where we're in the state of being, and the idea is to not carry those same, kind of values that we were taught, in life with chasing that could happen within our, cultures and civilization, but rather in being, and so I think a big part of the book's goal and the wisdom of Jacob's Ladder is differentiating, the two ladders of life that people could be on. The ladder where in order for you to become something, you have to go up that ladder, you have to put people down. And this is understanding that the other side, is at the end of the ladder, but the other side is also connected to every rung of it. And we're here to embody, the other side onto each part, each lifetime, each carnation of the ladder, and just to become a grander expression of ourselves. But that's not by hustling and running around. That's by really going inward and embodying what's truly there and losing what we've been taught.
That's so good. It's so important, isn't it? I'm going to open up. I know that with some people here have got some questions. If you are watching and you want to engage, you want to ask a question, please just pop that into the question field there. There are a couple, so I will come back and have a look at those. As I'm just going through the comments to find their questions, Jacob, the question I have for you is, how much, you said that you'd seen a few previous lifetimes when you had your near-death experience. How much detail did you get to see of them? How much understanding do you have of those lifetimes?
I think some of my last lifetime is the one that was clearest. For instance, we could go through lifetimes, but I think the lifetimes that we're drawn to or that we're aware of, or that we're privy to, have a lot of symmetry with our current circumstance in this lifetime. And so the last lifetime that I lived, I don't think I connect to it because it was what we label as the last, but just the parallels and, what I experienced was very much closely related to my near-death experience and the life that I lived. And so, that lifetime, with suicide, and then a life that I'm living as, someone who's working in the mental health population, helping people who, are in that position and working from the ground up, and then, writing these books. I think it's really to speak to that part of you that was stuck and working on that so that you could better able to relate to other people and their experiences. And it's all about paying it forward. When you're in that circumstance, it's not just going through that circumstance or experience, through torture, but rather, like we said before, learning within each lifetime how to really relate to other experiences and how to really see a different pathway when that chessboard is there and you're trying to find ways to operate and engage with it in a little bit different of a higher road.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how much detail of those lifetimes did you bring? Like, can you remember them in really clear detail, or have they kind of sort of gone a bit, I guess, more blurry over the years since you had that experience?
I think a lot of the highlights, particularly in that last lifetime and some others, or, what I would call within lifetimes, like you don't remember, like, going out to like a restaurant or something like that, but the major overarching events, within that lifetime, and death is certainly one of them, that kind of sticks with me. I mean, usually in past life regressions, there's 2 or 3 like major turning events that we hold on to. Got a feeling if I come back, I think definitely the near-death experience would be something that I hold on to, within this lifetime and others, like a major event. So I would think mostly the major events are things that I really, feel strongly connected to. And the others are just, not so much in my own awareness or care for, it's just the parts that have most substance and meaning to them and significance as it relates to lessons and wisdom are there. But it depends. I mean, I've gone through past life regressions, and sometimes I'm just like anyone else. Like it's just like in Brazil, and I was just kind of like chilling there doing whatever, and I was just aware of some of the scenery, and it wasn't like anything quantum or specific. It was just an awareness of
Yeah.
seeing my body, just so it depends, but
Yeah.
when I'm not regressed, it's usually the major kind of themes that I hold on to.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that. Sometimes I think we're looking for the big firework moments and the amazing times. And yeah, sometimes it's just the small everyday stuff. Okay, I'm going to go through. Gosh, we've got a lot of people here, a lot of comments. So just keep your comments coming, your questions that you have for Jacob. I do apologize if I've missed any. I think most of the ones I've done so far are just hello comments. So I'm going to scroll down. This one, D. Texan, I came in late. Did he say that he saw any family that had passed? Now, I know that you said you saw spirit beings, angelic beings. Did you
Angelic
see family?
beings, as well as soul family members that I was able to become aware of. I think ultimately humanity is one team, so we're not separate from that. But I think in a way we have a core team, that we play different roles in, we incarnate with in different lifetimes, and so that really is a part of our core team. So I was definitely aware of my core team that came to me, within my near death experience.
Mm, okay. Do you think that they're different? Your core team is different to maybe a soul group where you reincarnate over and over again? They
No,
weren't beings that you had lived on this lifetime on this earth with.
well, no, they were, yes, they were beings that I lived in other lifetimes with, sure.
Other
They
lifetime.
weren't physically there, like my family. That was, it's a part of that. That could be a part of it. My biological family, in that lifetime. But yes, we come through different roles, and I think in a way it's just a different expression of divinity. It's just like
Mm,
it's just a different ray of God that we, are with. It's a different soul group that we're with, but we're connected on a macro basis, very much too as well in the team.
mm, mm. So interesting. I've got questions, but I'm going to try and get through our listeners' questions rather than mine because I always have questions. Okay, so this one here, Jean Baptiste. Can dreams reveal past lives or parallel lives? My dreams feel more like memories than dreams. Oh, I
Hmm.
like that one.
Oh, absolutely. I think when we think of the dream state, we're out of like the limited kind of brain, and where the isn't that a disembodied state.
Mm,
Consciousness is a lot more broad because we're out of our body, and so with dreams, time linearity isn't there, and so many often the soul could travel and recharge itself and explore, other parts, beyond just this body and this personality. So I think I've seen it happen a lot, particularly after past life regressions. A lot of people will have a certain degree of experiences within the regression, but then a couple of days later, they'll be able to have a dream about it. And I think maybe, a lot of times the subconscious mind is kind of like a muscle. The more readily we use it, the more familiar it is, and the more it just kind of
yeah.
comes to us as a streamline of consciousness from our ability to just integrate it in our everyday lives.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that, bringing that into the dreaming aspect. I think that's really cool. Writing down dreams is really good. I say that, I'm terrible at it.
All
I
right.
go through phases of having the most intense, real dreams. So I totally understand what you're saying there, that the dreams feel more like memories than dreams. I go through phases where every night is just such detail, such
Yeah.
amazing dreams. And so, yeah, write them down. I'm talking to myself here as well. Dream journals, I think we can look back on them. I write down some of them, but not as many as I should. Some of them, looking back on them, I think it could be absolutely amazing. So, yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for that. Okay, I'm just
I don't
scrolling
know
through
about you,
here.
but when I have a dream, sometimes it feels realer and more authentic than this
Yeah,
reality.
yeah.
Lately I've been having a lot of dreams, where I'm writing my next book and I'm getting dictated pages to write. and I'm
Oh,
actually seeing myself typing it. And I wake up and I take a
wow.
legal pad and I write on it, and so when I wake up, I'm like, it felt like literally my behind was sitting in front of a laptop writing. I can't believe I'm
Yeah.
dreaming right now. Like everything about where I write, it's just it's the weirdest thing that I to wake up from because it feels so real.
Yeah, wow. And it's probably all in your mind. Half the work's been done because it's there at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's really helpful. Thank you for that.
yeah,
Interesting. I'm currently downloading a program. I'm getting very regular information of stuff that I need to share. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put that into a small group program. And same thing, like it's just coming to me. I'm not searching for it. It's
right.
literally when I'm not expecting it. And that some of that's come through dreams, some of it's come through being in those states. They talk about when we're asleep, we're in a more open state to be able to receive messages. Same when we're driving. I get a lot of messages when I'm driving. I get a lot of messages when I'm in the gym. So yeah, dreaming, it's all connected. It's all amazing. Okay, coming on to our next question, we've got from Charles. What is your idea on hell? Is it eternal or just a state of mind, like Dolores Cannon says?
Yeah, I think one thing that we have a very hard time many times is having a different set of reality on the other side or of God than our experiences here on earth. For instance, there's a lot of transference of religion and religious belief systems with spirituality. And I say God, spirituality, afterlife exists not because of those things, but despite of. And so I think a lot of people transfer their worldviews and their outlooks on those experiences. And I think in a way, it's so much different. We are taught that we are loved or judged based on what we do, but rather, there's not a capacity to forgive. And so, how could we have an unlimited God, but a God that doesn't forgive, a God that's jealous, a God that punishes? That's not unlimited, unconditional love. And so, I think really
Mm,
hell to me, and you speak about some of those, souls, generational souls who we view as dark or inflicting quantum pain. I agree. It's just a separation from who we truly are in that infinite light. And I think coming back to heaven, coming back to ourselves is returning to home. There's a term called involution and evolution. Evolution is really evolving throughout different lifetime what's there, and then involution is really going away from that, kind of getting sidetracked. And sometimes we have those experiences to just have as experiences and remind us the value of returning back home, and that part of us can never be lost despite however we see ourselves in the nature of reality. That part is always deep under the rubble, that or reality clouds itself over, because only love, heaven, God, and anything real could last. Anything evil, is unreal because it's not home. It doesn't, you could burn it and it comes back to the nothingness that it came from. It could feel real. It could certainly cause turbulence, but in the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, only what's real lasts. And hopefully we just wish that people who have different lifetimes and might go away from that return back to home.
mm,
Because they,
definitely. Definitely. That makes sense to me. Charles, I'm just going to jump in on there. I kind of agree that it is not that it's a state of mind, because I know people who've had very, very real, uh, not positive experiences. People have had very distressing experiences, whether that's in a near-death experience or it's in a dream or some kind of visitation of some sort. I wouldn't say that they're not real. I would say that I think, I really like what Jacob said of how can we have an unlimited God, but yet there's the limited capacity for forgiveness or for love, or there are consequences for our choices and things like that. But yeah, I like what you said there, Jacob. I
yeah,
could build myself a little tunnel
as
here, couldn't I? I
as
could
as
dig a
as
hole.
as wonderful as our parents are, God is not our parents. Sometimes we put our parents on a pedestal, and we
Yeah,
transfer that dynamic, right? Because
yeah,
so many of us we put them on a pedestal, but God at its core is infinite, unconditional love, and that is who we are as our core.
yeah,
So it's a foreign concept within this
yeah.
transactional degree of love versus this unconditional, reality of love. So
Yeah. Oh, we could talk about this for days, I'm sure. It's a very not quite controversial, but it's a very involved topic, but
Mm.
one which we may open up. I'm not quite sure what to do with that. But I love that you've asked it, Charles. I think we need to ask questions. We need to get these comments out there. A little bit of back in there. We've got D. Texan says, great question on health. Thank you. Again from Charles, we had a tough slate on my family the last 3 years, starting with my mum's death. We've lost 7 members since then, and my wife is very sick. I'm so sorry to hear that. He says, I'm just needing so many answers. Yeah, sounds like you're going through a really tough time, Charles. We will send our positive energy your way. Jacob, do you have anything for that? What are your thoughts around what Charles is saying? He's having one of those really tough lifetimes.
I think it's very important to feel what you feel. I think feelings promote our own healings in our life. I think it's important in a way to meet yourself where you're at, to find ways to process, what you're going through. When there's a readiness, maybe finding someone to talk to, on a personal, professional basis. But I think everything happens for a reason at the end. Sometimes we just don't want to say that, or don't or aren't ready for that, or that it's almost impossible to see that when you're struggling so much. But I can assure you, within time, it doesn't change the events. But I think as long as within time, you'll be able to go through the necessary steps of grief, and most importantly, find a deeper part of yourself and find meaning past loss, and find a light past all the darkness that you have. It might not be here today, but through continual processing, continual support, you will go through exactly what you were meant to go through and continue to progress in your own way throughout this. But our sincere condolences for your loss, and we send our heartfelt thoughts through what you're experiencing during this time, as are so many have experienced loss within this last year and a half and beyond.
Absolutely. And if our listeners, if you can think of Charles and send out your prayer and your support and your love, send that towards him, that would be fabulous. I hope that that's helpful for you, Charles. It does sound like it's really tough at the moment. Okay, moving on, we've got Nico. He says, how does it feel when you realize that you are in regression? Is it like, I guess, hypnosis?
Yes, past life regression is a form of hypnosis, and I think hypnosis has a big stigma, obviously, from the media. And I think a lot of people will feel as if they're under a state of control, or that it's so deep or it's so complex. But I think really it's very easy. It's very simple, because it's something that's there deep inside of us. And so I think many times people go through it. They're like, wow, that was a past life. I thought I had to be done under hours, because we're taught for us to go to any place that we feel desirable or foreign as if we have to muscle it. But it's all, anything that we need to hear comes through us. It's all there. Much like, for anyone, for instance, who, like yourself or myself, who's a writer, when you ever try to write and try to muscle it, it doesn't work, because it doesn't come from your left brain. It doesn't come from you. It comes from a higher reservoir of wisdom just flowing through you. And we're just channels and messengers of that wisdom. And I think the same thing within higher consciousness. It's just allowing yourself to just sit back and observe, almost as if you're watching a movie, and that movie is your life, and you're able to see the different scenes play out, and just allow them to unfold without having to judge, label, identify, or force. And so I think it's just allowing, that to unfold, and it's all there within the higher mind. It never left you. So I think whatever you're ready to hear will present itself just as is.
Yeah, that's great. I think at Nico, when I did a past life regression and I was in that state of hypnosis, I felt very relaxed. I was still aware of everything. It was kind of like being in a meditation for me. I was aware of the room and everything that was going on, but I was also not connected to the room and what was going on. I was very much in a state of hypnosis, processing something at a very, very deep level. You ask, what does it feel like?
Mm.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not doing a good job describing that. You're still aware of things. You're not under where people can play tricks on you and yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully. Anyway.
And there's different stages of hypnosis. There's lighter and there's the deeper stages. But usually, within passive regression, it's, from my experience, people don't go that deep where, we have to get like a doctor or a hospital to get them out of it. It's never really happened to me, but yeah, everyone's different in how deep they kind of go, but it's not necessarily needed because I think it's really, there you just have to be in a relaxed state and letting go of all those degrees of separation from the light. I view the light as that projector in the movie screen with infinite awareness, and sometimes we have all these shadows of personalities or different parts or things that have happened in our lifetime, and sometimes we have to rip those away to get to the infinite core of truth. And so the process of higher awareness isn't about making more light, but rather a lot of it is removing all those things that are getting in the way of our infinite awareness, our blockages.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. I like that a lot. That makes sense. Okay. Our next question, Facebook user, apologies, I can't use your name. Do your patients, clients talk about life in between lives? If so, what do they do on the other side? I love this question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Who is that? Is it something Robert Schwartz talks a lot about this? Robert Schwartz, right? He talks a lot about his books, the soul planning and stuff like that. Within past self regression, we do the in utero, and we do a little bit before that too, within incarnation. So yes, we do talk about the charting phase, but also we talk about the part where the soul leaves its body and having an awareness, of that memory when you crossed over and what that was about, and how that relates, because I think lifetimes relate to others. There's parallels with maybe 3-4 lifetimes ago what you're living. There's always parallels, and I think it's very important to find the connecting dots of puzzles. But yes, we do a lot of that within my clients. I think that's important.
Mm. What do you think we do in terms of, I get asked questions about, do we have pastimes? Do we have hobbies? How do we spend time when we're not physically incarnating?
It's different. I mean, the other side is not unidimensional; it's multidimensional.
Yeah, that's
I
what makes
think
it complicated.
I think so many different parts of the other side have an overlaying energy of the planet and what's going on here. It's just like a higher form of it, and then other parts are just the pure light realm. So it's different, but it's not like we don't just do anything, or we still are who we are. We're just more aware of ourselves and the nature of reality. We let go of that personality and that age, and I think most importantly, there's freedom, and right, to choose what you want to do, to choose how you want to be. There's still a degree of growth, progression, development, healing, but there's so many levels of the other side. It's virtually unlimited. It could be right in front of this reality as we know it, or feel a million miles away, but it's all, a part of each vibration and the frequency. And I think the higher we vibrate as souls, the higher we go into the other realm, to me, if you ask me. And so
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think really it's about vibrating within each lifetime. We vibrate higher, and then we go into more infinite parts of our own awareness of the other side, and our ability to go to those different levels of the light.
Yeah, wow. That is really cool. I like that idea a lot. I'm going to have to process that in my thoughts. Okay, we've got a couple of comments here. Charles, go back if you have the chance to read some of the comments. There's a lot of people showing you support. There's a lot of people sending you love, so that's great. Okay, Jean-Baptiste says, thank you, Jacob and Kirsty, for answering my question. My dreams are my safe place. So I really like that. That's really cool. Okay, just coming down. Yes, there is a lot of support flowing in for you, Charles. So I absolutely love that. Oh, a Facebook user is Lorianne. She says it's me, Lorianne. So that's okay. We just don't have your name on there, so that's all right. Okay, another question. This one is from Charles again, which is great. Remember, if you have your questions, send them in, send them through. Otherwise, you get me asking all my questions, which you're very familiar with, but this show is about you and your questions. So this question from Charles is, what are your thoughts on parallel universes? Now we're getting deep.
Charles is asking some. I also saw he
Great
asked,
question.
do your spirit guides leave you too? Those are great questions.
Oh, he did too. Okay, we'll do this one and then we'll do that one. How's that?
Yeah. No, I firmly believe that we're not just here in this body. That there's different dimensions of ourselves connected to different parts of infinite awareness, and some will call that the higher self, some will call it the lower selves. But I think we're connected just beyond this body, and I really do believe that. In my near-death experience, going to the other side, I saw that part of the overlaying energy of the other side was much like this world and dimension. It was just a higher vibration, a higher kind of like expression of it. So I certainly believe that. And with regards to spirit guides, I do believe that love really can never leave us. Love never ends. Love is what we're forever connected to, and spirit guides are a very high expression of love. When we think about it, spirit guides and us had a contract to choose each other, and out of the trillions and billions of people on the planet, for us to be contracted, there's something so profound to that. And so if it's a loved one that is what we view as lost or whatever that is, I firmly believe that love never ends. And from Carnation, our primary guides are with us the entire journey. They never leave our side. They're always there. I think we could have add-ons throughout lifetimes and different, guides coming in as we're going through different experiences to enhance, their input, their wisdom, their guidance. But primary guides, could never leave our side. I don't know what you think about that, but I can't imagine that love would ever leave us, or something that's so pivotal as our primary spirit guides would ever abandon the ship. They're very much contracted.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder whether we have guides for particular parts of our life. I wonder whether some guides come and go. It's not that they leave us, but almost like that part of the lifetimes lived out, the lessons are learned, those experiences happen. And so it makes that spirit guide maybe redundant for the rest of the journey that we're going in, where they could go and help somebody else. Or I actually don't know. And it's really exciting to see this question, because I've questioned whether people they could incarnate as a guide, but in a physical being. Does that make sense? So they're
Sure.
actually spirit guide, part of our guide team, but they come in a physical part in our life to help us here physically, but then actually all along they were just a spirit guide anyway. Do you think that that's possible?
I always say I got to find my spirit guides with how helpful some people are in my own life, because they're some people we just look at and we could just say, wow, that's a human being with angel wings, really. Really, it's just undeniable. And so I think angels aren't just there in the ethers. If we open up our eyes and our hearts and our ears, we could see a lot closely that they're around us, not just over there, but over here too. So.
Totally. And yeah, I do think that they sort of transition and change around, just like purpose. I believe purpose can transition and change. Okay. Now, forgive me, Jacob and Charles, I can't remember. Did you talk about the parallel universes, or did we go straight?
Yeah, I think we were able to hit on that as well.
Okay. So. Okay, apologies. I am juggling a few ones here. Okay, so the next question is, will we see our loved ones again? Am I understanding that correctly? Oh, so we will see our loved ones again.
Yeah, then you don't have to wait till you die to see them either. I think in your own readiness, when you're going through grief, it's hard, to connect with them. But I think when there's a readiness, it's kind of like a radio. When your energy is ready for it and vibrates higher, theirs comes down. And, it's just a pure connection that you just can't deny. You have a knowing that's more than just hope, belief or faith. There's a clear knowing when that connection is there. And in your own way, you will know. And sometimes the signs and symbols are so clear that you can't deny. I was just told a story, if you have time, of my grandfather who, ran kind of like a nice small business, but here on Long Island, that was like 30 years ago. And my grandmother's aide was sitting in a church in the middle of New York City, maybe an hour away from his business, 25, 30 years later. And there was this random congregant who had her Bible out. And out of her Bible, lo and behold, came my grandfather's business card that fell on the floor.
Oh,
And,
wow.
this was like a business that had been operating 25, 30 years. Maybe, people on Long Island knew of it, but it wouldn't be something that people would hold a business card 30 years later in New York City. So I know that's a microcosm of so many other stories that are just so undeniable. So I think if you look far enough, they're there, and ask and you shall receive, and there will be wishes fulfilled when you come from a place of asking as if you've already received it, not asking as if you want it, but asking as if it's already there, that you and that loved one can never be separated, because it might feel like that, but love never ends. It really does not.
I love that. I hope that that's helped with that question. I believe that we will see them again. I believe that we're all connected. From all of the stories that I've heard, the interviews I've done, it seems very, very clear that we connect with our past loved ones again. So I hope that that brings some comfort and, answers the question. Oh, Charles says that everyone here is awesome. I love you all. That is wonderful. Okay, from Lee. I'd love to hear your thoughts on being from other planets. After the death of the physical bodies, do souls communicate with souls of humans?
Wow.
That's a big question. What do you think, Jacob?
It's a hot topic today, but it's nothing new. I've been studying this, as have other people for years. It's nothing new what's happening. I think in a way, certain powers that be try to hide this awareness, but within the intelligence forces in almost any country, there's well chronicled documentation that there are, other beings on planet. Unfortunately, media is driven, or movies rather, are driven by fear, and fear sells. And so a lot of times, other than E.T., which was a very loving kind of being, but I think so many times we think that everything is at war with us and there's a doomsday kind of thing. But I think, in a way, my guess is, they want to come here, but they don't want us to come there. If we go there, like, they all get COVID and all this stuff. They don't want
We'll
us.
ruin everything.
They just want to hop in and hop out, much like, if you don't want to be a parent and you could just, kind of have, a niece or nephew or go to a dog, but you don't want that to come to your own. You got your own journeys to have, So.
Oh, funny. Yeah, that makes me laugh. That really does. It is a really hot topic. So much so that I have got a lady coming into the VIP group for a VIP live session, which we're all going to jump on Zoom and have an interactive conversation. She is a UFO researcher, and she had her own experience. She's got missing time. She's had some very interesting experiences. So if you want to catch that conversation, if you're a VIP, you are very welcome to come along. If you're not a VIP, I strongly suggest checking that out, because there are so many goodies in that group that you miss out on just being a standard listener. So just so you know that is coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Very, very exciting to have that conversation. Okay, we have got time for a couple more questions. I've just got a couple more here that I'll answer, but you've got about 30 seconds, maybe a minute, to put your final questions in for Jacob, and then we're going to round up this call. I don't know where the time has gone. We've done 1:05, and I feel like we just started 2 minutes ago. So thank you. This is so interesting, Jacob. Our next question, it's from Facebook user, so maybe it's Laurie. Oh, it is Laurie Ann. She says at the bottom, do you think that our multiple lives are progressive, or do we ever go backwards to experience something challenging that might help our souls, or perhaps someone in that lifetime?
Yeah. Well, I always say nothing is backwards if we're able to go forwards. So step backs, what we see as a failure Monday or Tuesday, if we learn from it Wednesday or Thursday, in the
Yeah,
grand scheme of it, it's a lesson learned. So I think,
totally.
like everything else, it doesn't end from the face value of what we see it, and we're able to find ways to really turn, something from nothing. But I think, in a way, our souls, kind of come here because, I think Edgar Cayce speaks about that. We desire foreign, existences, or we desire experiences. We want those experiences. We come from a place of all loving, and then we come to the earth, which is different. And so we want to have imprints of who we truly are in foreign places, to spread the love even in the darkest places, to know that love is all there is, never was, and to not have a separation between dimensions, to have this dimension here because we are this dimension here. We're not here to bring heaven on earth. We are heaven on earth. We are a part of that within ourselves. And so what we could say as backwards, if we're able to find meaning of that, purpose of that, that to me is progress. But we can never be damaged nor harmed for many of our lifetimes. It's all experiences. I think we're used to judge,
Yeah,
pass, fail, all that stuff. But
totally.
I always say, get off the result mode and get into the journey mode, because the journey
Oh, I like
is
that.
who we truly
Yeah,
are. Results, we're not finite results. It's not like we
yeah,
watch movies and Shrek marries Fiona and it's happy ever after. But then what the hell happens when someone gets sick or something like that happens? That's not practical. And so we're
yeah,
endlessly unfolding. It's an endless journey. It's not an endless, results are not endless. It's, so that's what I think.
yeah. No, I really like that. That resonates with me too, Jacob, what you've said there. I don't know. This is where we can't judge where anybody's at. We can't judge what they're going through, how they're responding, or whatever, because we're all on our own individual journey. We've got our own things going on. And I just feel so strongly that, situations, experiences that we have, things that happen in our life, there's no hierarchy on those. We go through certain things for certain outcomes, and the outcome might not be clear straight away. It might be a few steps down the pathway that outcome becomes what it needs to be. So if we look at it and judge it, I think it's quite hard. I'm not making very good sense here, but basically I think every experience is, not that it's equal, but there aren't higher experiences than others when we're in this physical realm. The things that come into our lifetime, the things that we go through are there for a set reason. And yeah, probably not forwards or backwards, but like Jacob says, it's for that whole experience. So yeah, I really like that question though, because I've thought about that sometimes, but that's the understanding I've come to around that. Okay, we've got a question from Everly. What was time there to you? Did you have a sense of your spirit's size there? Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. Well, time was timeless. And for the linear mind, that's very foreign. We don't operate like that. We were so used to time. And that was the biggest adjustment when I was there. It was just this pure place of timelessness. It was non-linear. And so we're processing that with the brain. But within the deeper core of our being, that is who we truly are. We are timeless beings without the 7-day, 365-day calendar. We're beyond the body, beyond the personality. We're not used to that. We're used to having a feeling, being satiated by that, and going on to the next, the next, the next, the next. And there's a constant chase. That's how we're wired. But on the other side, you're just in this place of endless timelessness. Past, present, future. It's just one, moment. That's all there is. There's nothing to like wrap your head around or analyze or chop up. You can't chop up eternity. It would be like going to an ocean and trying to take out the water with a cup. It's it's like,
Yeah.
like, what are you doing?
Good luck.
You're trying to take the water
Yeah.
out of the cup from the ocean. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. You try, I think, like I tried to do that, but like you can't. A part of us is so wired that we try to chop up eternity. And so I had a sense of my spirit outside of my body, which if you go on Amazon and look at Life After Breath, my book, you could certainly
Show us your book.
learn a bit more about that. But I did have form that I was aware of when I was able to look at my body, which was irresponsive in the disembodied state. But yes, we have form, um, but we're more than our personality. We're more than the body. We're more than a chronological age. We're a timeless soul, and I think that's one of my many lessons that I speak a little bit in Life After Breath in my upcoming book, The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. That we are bigger than a body. We are bigger than a number. We are bigger than our ego. In a way. So.
Yeah. I love these questions. They're kind of unanswerable as well at the same time. Absolutely love it. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Everly, for asking that. Okay, we have got our final question before we wrap up. And this one is from Renee. She says, I love that. Now, I'm not quite sure which part you love, but let's go with all of it. She says, I'm always in results mode. How do you change that mindset? And this is something I think many of us relate to.
I think it's about embodying who you truly are, not what you've been taught. We've been taught results makes us a value, makes us worthy. But in reality, we recognize that it never lasts. It's always on to the next thing, the next thing. It's never enough. And so I think a lot of that is the journey that so many of us are on, and what in so many ways the meaning of life is to just find meaning of life, to give life meaning. And I think for yourself, it's learning how to love not what you do, but who you are. And who you are is beyond anything that we do. And to find our being to be in whatever we are doing. We are a human being, not a human doing. And I think it's learning how to love your own being.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of it's about being still and taking the time to tune in and to listen. Doesn't mean it's easy. I totally hear what you're saying there, Renee. I really, really agree with you and like that question. Okay, that is the end of the questions. I'm going to draw the line there. If you are listening to the replay of this and you are not yet already a subscriber on YouTube, or you haven't subscribed to the weekly newsletter that goes out with all the events that are coming up and everything that you need to know, you can find the link for that in the video. I'm saying the replay on this. I don't normally post replays of the live sessions. They're usually live so that you can come in and ask your questions. But as we were talking, I felt very clearly, Jacob, as you were talking, that this one actually needs to go out as a replay, as an audio only. So if you're listening on the audio only platforms, this is why you've got an extra episode, as I felt that this one needed to go out. We have chatted on so many topics today, Jacob. It's been so interesting. I have loved it. I've loved the variety of questions. Everyone who engaged, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amazing questions. I love that we're here. I'm always saying we need to question, we need to discuss. That's part of why I do these calls, is because we need to have these discussions. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. That's how we find out what makes sense, what doesn't. And again, I'll always say, listen to what resonates for you. So if some doesn't resonate, that's okay. But I really love that we've had the variety today. So Jacob Cooper, author of Life After Breath. We're going to put the link to that in the show notes. Go and check out the book. It's amazing. I'm going to put up that little, the image. I've got to find out where it is now. Gosh, where are we? The image from Raymond Moody, just endorsing this book. He says it's a clear, remarkable illustration that consciousness continues after death. It's available at Amazon. We're going to put the link to that. Go and check that out because it's an amazing read. There's another book coming, Jacob's Ladder. I know I've abbreviated the title there, Jacob. What's the full title?
The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder.
The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. I can't wait for that one to be released as well. That's going to be amazing. But Jacob, I want to say thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, if you're listening to the replay, pop your questions into the comments and I can forward them on to Jacob. We will have him back in the future. The official episode where we talk about Jacob's NDE is coming out in about 2, possibly 3 weeks. And if you're a VIP, you're going to get the pre-release of that a little bit earlier. So that is coming up very soon. We've had an amazing conversation. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Jacob Cooper, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this, give a thumbs up, give a heart, give a like, give a comment, whatever it is to say thank you. And we look forward to chatting with you very soon. Oh, look at that. They're coming in now. So thank you, Jacob. Thank you so much. We will chat to you all very soon.
Thank you. Bye now.